To start Liat's Limitless cast-on, you need a long circular needle, preferably 47 inches, and 2 balls of yarn. Now I'm going to use 2 balls of yarn that are the same color because that's probably what you're going to be using. But don't worry, I will help you not get confused. So we're going to begin by casting on half of the number of stitches that we need for the project. My sample project, I'm going to make 2 tubes that are 20 stitches around each. So half of 20 is 10. I'm going to begin by casting on 10 stitches onto the tip of this needle, but make sure that you leave enough tail for all 20 stitches because you're going to have to eventually cast on all 20. But we're going to begin with 10. So make a slip knot, just take a twist like this, reach through, and pull up a loop like that. And I'm going to cast on 10 stitches. Not too tight, of course. We are going to have to knit into them in just a minute. Alright. With 10 stitches cast on, go ahead and push these stitches a little bit further back out of the way. And now we're going to cast on 20 stitches using the other ball of yarn directly onto the same needle tip. With 20 stitches casted on from the second ball of yarn, we're going to now divide these stitches for magic loop. So take these stitches and slide them to the middle of the cable, just like that. We're going to divide them in half. Just don't even worry about these other stitches, they're just hanging out right there. So let's count in half, so that's 5, and that's 10. Go ahead and bend the cable just like this. Now don't kink it, don't bend it up here. Bend it down here and be nice and gentle. Separate your stitches and pull this loop like that. Pulling, pulling, pulling like this until the stitches go back onto the tips of the needle. So continue to pull. There we go. Now we've got a little bit of a mess here. Just keep pushing. Okay, and this is exactly what you want to see. Right here. Here are the stitches we started with from ball A, and here are the stitches we put on second from ball B. Now these guys can just hang out for a minute while we finish casting on the stitches from ball A. Now this is going to look a little funny to you. See how weird that looks? How our tail and working yarn are down here at the bottom of the needle? That's exactly what you want, because you can see that these stitches are joined down here. So are these going to be. So we are going to hold the needles just like this. Just push those out of the way. Just like this. And we're going to hold them sort of like TV antenna. Just like that. Now, tension. Let's see. Let's go ahead and hold this needle in front like that. So don't put your finger in between like chopsticks or anything like that. Just, I don't know if that's how you hold your chopsticks, but keep your fingers out of the way. And tension the yarn just like this. I'm going to give you a really good look at what that looks like. So we're tensioning the yarn for the long tail cast on. We can move this cord out of the way. And we're going to be casting on 10 more stitches onto this bottom needle. And this one's just going to stand right next to it. So this is what it looks like. Like that. Now go ahead and tighten that up so that there's not a big long space between the two needles right there. Keep it nice and close. And do that again for 10 stitches. This is the trick that will help you cast on for 2 at a time. When you've finished casting on the rest of your 10 stitches, this is what it's going to look like. And here are all the stitches together, and it should look identical. This is ball B, and this is ball A. That's what it looks like. So now let's turn this around so that we're in ready position, so that it looks a little bit more familiar. Okay, let's get that working yarn in the back. These guys can just hang out, but you can see that the working yarn is right back there, ready for us to knit with. And let's get that tail out of the way. The nice thing about this way of casting on is you don't even have to mark the beginning of your round because you've got your tail right there. So you don't have to put a marker. By the way, if your tail is really long, go ahead and cut it now because I would hate for you to start knitting with it and then have to undo this later. So cut your tails to about 6 inches. So let's do the first round of 2 at a time so that you can get this right. Here's our working yarn right there. Go ahead and lay the working yarn over the back of that back needle, just like that, so it stays out of the way. Now take that back needle, pull it out just like that, and turn it around so that the needle tips just look like regular knitting needles, like that. A left one and a right one. Go ahead and insert your needle into the first stitch, like that, and your yarn should be right back here, ready to knit with. There it is. Go ahead and knit that first stitch, just like that, and with that first stitch, you've joined your round. Now, go ahead and give that first stitch a pull. We don't want a big long gap like this here, so go ahead and hold the first stitch close to that back cable right there. Don't pull it too tight, but you want it a little bit close. So now, if you're working in rib, remember to go ahead and move your yarn to the front and purl, but we're just going to work in stockinette here, which is just knit stitches, like that. So knit all the way across the first half of the first tube. As we come to the last stitch on the first half of our first tube, be careful. What you don't want to do is do what you're used to with magic loop, which is maybe turn everything around, drop the left needle, pull this out. We're not ready. We're not there yet. We need to go directly to that second tube, which is right here waiting for us to knit it. So what we don't want to see is something like this, with it back there like that. That's going to be really confusing, especially because these can get all looped up. So just keep both tubes close to each other like that. Alright, so our yarn should be right back here where we need it. This time I'm going to demonstrate continental for all you continental knitters. And I'm also going to knit these stitches through the back loops because I think that's easier. So just 2 variations, 2 ways to do it. Alright, and again I'm going to pull that not super tight because remember we're going to have to get this big needle back into those stitches. So, but just tight enough. What we don't want to see is something like this, where you're knitting like that. Okay? Go ahead and this is flexible for a reason. So keep that nice up and close there, just like that. Alright, and you can see it's a little bit easier to knit those through the back loops because of how they're oriented on the needle. Alright, so we're going to complete the first half of this first round by knitting all the way across this half of the stitches from, I think this is ball B. I'm not keeping track and it really doesn't matter, but you get the idea. Okay, so coming to the end, we've just completed 2 halves of our little tubes. And there we are, knitting in the round, 2 tubes at once. Now we can do like what we're normally used to doing on magic loop, which is drop that left-hand needle, turn your knitting around like this so that the needle points face to the right. Give this cable a pull, just like that. Use your fingers to push the needle back onto those stitches, and you can see we didn't knit that first stitch too tight, otherwise that would be really hard. If this is really hard, you can't get it in, it's because you pulled this first stitch too tight. You may be used to doing that if you are used to using double points. So let's go ahead and knit the second half of our first round. It's going to be exactly the same, so I'm going to continue continental so we can go a little bit quickly. Make sure you're working yarns in the back. We don't want to see this. Now if it is like this in the front, all you just need to do is put it in the back like that, pull out that back needle, fly it around like this, push your stitches up to the tip. Again, I'm going to knit through the back loops, it's easier for me, and begin to knit that first stitch, going all the way across the second half of these stitches on the tube. Right, that's a little loose there, so I'm just going to pull my tail so that is nice and secure. So now we have one full round on magic loop. Let's go directly to the next set of stitches, and mine seem to have fallen down a little bit here, so I'm going to push them up like that. That's what this looks like. The working yarn is right here in the back, right where I want it. I don't really care for that little tangle. There we go, now it's gone. And you can see that we're only halfway through because here's the tail, here's the beginning of the round. So let's go ahead and complete that round. The working yarn's in the back where it should be. And knitting that first stitch, working all the way across the second half of the second tube on the first round of our 2 at a time tubes. From here, all you have to do is keep going. I'm going to get back to ready position one last time, and we can tighten up that last stitch by pulling the tail there, making that nice and snug. Drop your left hand needle like that. Turn everything around so the needle points face towards the right. Pull your cable like that. Using your hands, push the stitches onto the needles like that. You can see that we've done our whole complete round because our tail is up at the front with our working yarn. So there's your Liat's Limitless cast-on and first round for 2 at a time knitting. And there are little tubes right there. Aw, how cute. Alright, now you do it.